It's a new day, and that means new stories from Ocean Story. Let's begin. My husband Maverick and I have been together for 13 years and have a little girl, Cora, who is 4 years old. Our child has some health problems, and on the eve of the new year, Cora's problems became more acute. The doctors told us that Cora should have a lot of rest and not put too much stress on her. My daughter spent almost the whole day in her room, and we gave her a lot of medication. But a holiday is a holiday, and Maverick and I decided to take a taxi to my husband's uncle's house because his house is quite big and there could be a lot of guests there. I had some doubts about whether to take her with us, but we had no one to leave Cora with, so we went to the party. At about 9 in the evening, my daughter said she wanted to go to a room because it was very loud. I took Cora to a room that wasn't far from the living room, where we were sitting with our relatives. My daughter picked up her tablet and fell asleep very quickly. Although Cora is one of those children who have a hard time falling asleep, she wakes up very easily. We often have problems with this in our house. My husband and I have to speak quietly when we are in the kitchen so that Cora doesn't hear us. Still, we are used to it. I asked my family to be a little quieter. About 20 minutes later, my uncle Nicholas laughed very loudly at my dad's joke. I reminded them that my baby was resting and that they should be a little quieter. Nicholas said he was not laughing too loudly. 1 minute later, I heard a scream from my daughter's room. Cora started calling for me, so I went to calm her down and gave my daughter a pill. Afterwards, I came back a little angry, but I didn't yell or blame my dad or uncle for it. It was 10 o'clock in the evening, and my uncle pulled out an old album with pictures of my dad and Nicholas when they were young. Of course, they couldn't resist, and after 10 views of the photos, my uncle started telling a story for each of the photos. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to tell them to be quiet. My daughter woke up again, and I had to go and calm her down. I was paying attention to the volume from my family every minute. I had to ask my husband to talk to my uncle and dad so that they would not break the silence or behave more quietly. Nicholas was outraged at what my husband Maverick said, and my uncle responded, "This is my house, and I have the right to laugh loudly or quietly." My husband said, "Nicholas, you can certainly do that, but not while my sick daughter is resting." Nicholas felt guilty and said, "Okay, I'll go to the other room so you can sit in silence." For the rest of the holiday, my uncle was more or less quiet and everything was fine. When we returned home with our family, Maverick and I received several messages from Nicholas. In them, he accused us of humiliating him in front of his family. Our actions were very selfish, and we were the ones who ruined the celebration he had organized in his house. So, after what my husband did, we will no longer be invited to the holidays. That will take place at my uncle's house. Also, my dad called me in the afternoon and tried to apologize for his behavior, but my dad added that I was acting like an idiot when I reacted aggressively to their innocent jokes. I said to my dad, "You were laughing all over the house. If there was a deaf person among us, he would have heard everything." My dad said I was exaggerating and it wasn't true. So one part of the family thinks I'm an idiot who is very worried about the child. The other part of the family supported me. Personally, I am very offended by my uncle Nicholas. I also think that my dad is just as guilty as Nicholas. Maybe my husband or I overreacted in someone else's house. But what were we supposed to do with Maverick? Were we supposed to let our daughter Cora stay awake? Dominic, your uncle acted like a bastard who doesn't care about his family. Just because he invited the whole family over to celebrate the new year doesn't mean Nicholas can do whatever he wants. You and your husband only asked Nicholas for one thing. I don't think it's hard. Keep your voice down. After all, your daughter Cora is the one who needs to be restored. It is very important for children to sleep. Thanks to this, they become adults at all. It sounds like your uncle hasn't had children and doesn't know how important it is. You have nothing to apologize for. Just because Nicholas acted like a jerk doesn't mean you have to apologize for it. Your dad also did something very stupid, and he did it to justify his own mistakes. There are too many selfish rings in your family. Ruby, it is troubling that neither you nor your husband took a stronger stance from the outset, given the potential impact on Cora's well-being. In addition, your uncle's and your father's reactions to the situation indicate a lack of understanding and compassion for Cora's health issues. instead of taking responsibility for the fact that they disturbed Cora's peace. Your uncle started blaming you and your husband. For me, family is about support and understanding within, but when your uncle behaves like this, you don't even want to attribute him to your family members. Eva, the situation was further exacerbated when some family members failed to appreciate the seriousness of Cora's condition and the need for a quiet environment. Uncle Nicholas's initial refusal to honor your request for quiet was not only disrespectful but also showed a lack of empathy for Cora's health issues. The subsequent reaction when Nicholas accused you and your husband in his messages of ruining the party demonstrates a surprising level of defensiveness and denial. These messages showed that it was more important for your uncle to have a good holiday than it was for his own niece's health. He is just disgusting and owes your family an apology. Next story. My wife and I have 2 children who are 10 and 8 years old. Serenity and I have been married for 12 years. During this time, we have gotten used to our different personalities. My wife is the complete opposite of my nature. I really like to drink coffee after 7 in the morning. When I get ready for work, Serenity says she'd rather drink water in the morning. I really like to go shopping and look at different things and compare them with other stores. At that time, my wife hardly ever goes shopping, and if she needs something, Serenity asks her sister to buy something for her because their body is almost the same. I like to go on vacation to places with mountains, and Serenity and the kids like to be near water or in the woods. It's the same with our personalities. I am calm and can often react coldly to various critical events. Serenity panics and doesn't know what to do. I like to watch movies based on real events, but my wife always says it's better to watch a drama movie. We often have little arguments about what we're going to watch this weekend, so now we can move on to the events themselves. Now that you've learned a little bit about us, we live in a big city where there is no nature except for local parks, so I suggested that my family go on a week-long vacation. I gave them 2 options. We could fly to the ocean or to the mountains. Of course, my wife and children chose the option of going to the ocean. In fact, I expected this, but in the back of my mind I hoped that this year, my family would choose the option that would be beneficial for me. The fun started when Serenity and I were packing our things and thinking about what things would be most necessary. Serenity doesn't like to shop, but she loves to look good. So when we were packing our suitcases, Serenity couldn't decide on some things. For me, as a man who doesn't care about this at all, 4 pairs of t-shirts and 3 pairs of shorts were enough. Since we were going to the beach, and many things definitely should not be taken. But my wife wanted to look amazing every day. I asked Serenity, "Why do you need so many things with you?" For a second, my wife packed 3 suitcases just for herself. Serenity said, "I rarely go on vacation, so I want to look cool." I talked to her and convinced Serenity to take at least 2 suitcases. Believe me, it was not very easy. Serenity kept saying that she can never have too much stuff. The final result of the meeting was as follows. My children each took a small bag of things. I took a medium-sized bag to fit my laptop so that I could keep in touch on work issues. My wife, however, took 2 suitcases. We arrived at the airport and our flight was delayed a bit, so we sat in the waiting room. Then we went and loaded our luggage and got on the plane. When we arrived at our destination, we went to pick up our luggage. My sons and I took our things, and Serenity stood there waiting for her last suitcase, which had her most important things in it. In the end, Serenity never got her luggage, and we had to go to the support to find the loss. It took a long time, and it was 12 in the evening. It turned out that some woman had confused the luggage and left the airport. My wife was very upset that her things were lost. I tried to support her and said, "Serenity, you shouldn't be so upset, because you have another suitcase." My wife was a little bit offended by what I said and didn't speak to me until the next morning. In general, our vacation was very cool. We went to different attractions, ate a lot of ice cream, and watched the sunset. However, my wife often started complaining that she didn't feel as cool in the clothes she was wearing, pointing out that if she were now wearing the dress that was stolen, then her feeling would be better. I had to endure Serenity's words the whole vacation until I got tired of it and told my wife, "Serenity, you're constantly complaining about losing your luggage, and you have 4 things for every day." I flew to the resort with only 4 pairs of t-shirts and 3 pairs of shorts. Our kids have about the same amount of stuff as I. They have never complained about not having anything to wear. You're being overly dramatic about losing things. You should be enjoying your vacation, not telling everyone around you how bad you feel because you're wearing blue pants when you could be wearing green pants. All your words are too immature, and I'm really tired of it. Serenity said, "It was very cruel of you. I thought I could rely on you to listen to my feelings. Now I don't want to have anything to do with you." Then my wife's mother wrote to me, accusing me of being a jerk for bullying my wife. It made me feel like an asshole and a bad guy. It seems that I really acted very rudely with my own wife, and I should have been silent about her complaints. Grayson, when the wife loses her luggage, the narrator's first reaction seems rather insensitive, while his intention may have been to provide perspective and comfort. His reaction comes across as dismissive. You could have expressed sympathy and offered support in a more sensitive way, but the author was only thinking about his comfort in this situation. You should have tried to do something to find your wife's luggage. Autumn, the narrator's frustration with his wife's complaints about her choice of clothing while on vacation comes across as humiliation. While it is true that they packed differently, his reaction seems condescending. Instead of paying attention to Serenity's concerns and feelings, he brushes them off as immature and unnecessary, which could further strain their relationship. A more empathetic approach would be to acknowledge her feelings and encourage her to enjoy her vacation, no matter what. This reaction from the author indicates that he does not know how to be truly supportive. Adeline, the involvement of the wife's mother in their argument adds another downside to this story. The fact that the mother felt the need to intervene and criticize the narrator's behavior emphasizes the potential impact of outside opinions on your relationship. It is very important for couples to solve their problems in private and avoid involving family members, as this can complicate the situation and potentially damage the trust between partners. In general, your wife acted very selfishly by involving her mother. This indicates that Serenity has not learned to solve her problems without people. Now I want to tell a different story. My sister Kinsley asked me to help her with the care of her 2 sons. Because she and her boyfriend can't pay much attention to the children right now. I am not the most free person and have children of my own. Although I am an aunt to my sister's children, Kinsley is working very hard now to pay off the rent on the house. Her boyfriend Jonathan is also working hard, but he is a little more free than his girlfriend because Jonathan works as a plumber for a temporary company. My sister started asking me or my husband Nolan to babysit their sons a long time ago. Although I don't understand why my sister thinks it's so necessary, because her son Jeremiah is 17 years old. Her other son, Easton, is 15 years old. I've told Kinsley several times that they are adults and that I shouldn't be babysitting them. My husband and I don't do such trifles. Our daughter with Nolan is not so big and she is 17 years old. Naomi doesn't have strict rules and I don't think I need to be a babysitter for my daughter. I don't like the way my sister talks about her children, but once a week, my husband or I sit for a few hours with the Kinsley children. If you can call them children. I had to babysit my nephews for 2 months. The only good thing about it was that I could sit and read a book that I had been putting off. The Kinsley children were in their own rooms most of the time. It was so quiet that sometimes I felt like I was alone in the house. My husband and I noticed a few interesting things. My sister's oldest son lives like a hermit. Jeremiah stays in his room and only goes out to use the bathroom. He eats in the kitchen and always goes back to his room. Jeremiah almost never eats with everyone in the evening. I was very curious why Jeremiah behaves this way. Don't think that I wanted to preach moral lessons about being kinder to your family and paying attention to them. My husband and I were wondering why Jeremiah hardly talked to anyone. Every time we asked my sister or her husband about it, they didn't give us any concrete answers, which led us into a problem with Nolan. One day my husband was at Kinsley's house. They had a broken faucet and Nolan decided to fix it. It so happened that Nolan had forgotten the special wrench of the right size, so he went to Jeremiah's room to help him with the repair. To my husband's surprise, Jeremiah quickly agreed. Usually, Jeremiah refuses to spend even 1 minute with anyone. So the boys went to fix the faucet, and a conversation ensued between Jeremiah and Nolan. My husband slowly began to learn Why Jeremiah was so reclusive. Jeremiah started his story while my husband was checking the pipe. Jeremiah said, "I don't really like to talk to anyone because I don't feel like anyone can understand me. I tried to contact my parents, but every time they started teaching me how to live my life and what I should do and what I shouldn't do. I have a difficult relationship with my parents because they never try to understand me. My younger brother is constantly bathed in parental love, but my mom and dad don't care about me. So I decided that it would be easier for me to be in my room and only have contact with my friends. After all, my friends don't try to judge me, unlike my parents." I was shocked when Nolan told me this story. He asked me to keep it a secret. It was strange for me because my sister is so kind and sweet in public, but as it turned out, things are much worse in her family. I discovered a lot of interesting things about my sister Kinsley and her husband Jonathan. Now I have started to go to their house with joy to show some attention to Jeremiah. I understand exactly how he felt at that moment. Jeremiah and I hit it off quickly, and even when my husband and I stayed over for dinner at Kinsley's, her son Jeremiah would come out and sit with us until we left. This really started to weird out Kinsley and Jonathan. So one day my sister decided to talk to me about it. Kinsley started to get jealous of me for her son because I was able to establish contact with him much better than she was. Also, Kinsley was annoyed that Jeremiah laughs at my husband's jokes, but when Jonathan makes jokes, her son does not show positive emotions. I told my sister that Nolan and I just started to take a real interest in Jeremiah. Because of this, he started to find us interesting and showed interest in talking to us. Kinsley replied, "I also talk to my son, and he's not as much fun when talking to me or my husband." I said, "Are you trying to accuse me or Nolan of being more interesting to your son than you and Jonathan?" My sister got angry and started to reject everything, saying that I think too much of myself, and in general, we shouldn't go to her house anymore. Everyone was very stressed out because of the whole thing. I told her that Nolan and I won't come to your house again until you've had a little bit of a break. Because of this, Jeremiah got very upset with Kinsley and said that she never thinks about his feelings. And now that the people who are interested in his life have shown up, Kinsley told them to go away. My sister is very angry with me and wants me to apologize to her and Jonathan for her son's lack of respect for them. I said, "Kinsley, see the problem in yourself before you blame others. I don't think that Nolan and I owe Kinsley and Jonathan anything. We just started to pay attention to her son, and that's exactly what we did. Although, apparently, in Kinsley's eyes, Nolan and I are assholes." Alia, it's sad to read about Kinsley and Jonathan's apparent disregard for the emotional needs of their own children. Jeremiah's withdrawn behavior is a clear sign of a deeper problem in the family. The fact that he finds solace and understanding in his aunt and uncle is a good indication of his parents' inability to provide a nurturing environment. It's a sad state of affairs when a stranger can connect with a child more effectively than his own parents. Elena, jealousy instead of genuine connection is stupid. Kinsley's jealousy of her sister's connection to Jeremiah is surprising and disturbing. Instead of being grateful that someone is taking the time to understand her son, she fears it. This is a clear indicator of her own insecurities and lack of maturity as a parent. It's disturbing to see parents putting their ego ahead of their child's well-being. Elias, blame shifting and lack of responsibility is the first problem I noticed. The fact that Kinsley is blaming her sister and husband for her son's new relationship is a classic example of blame shifting. It is painfully obvious that she is unwilling to acknowledge her own role in creating the emotional distance between her and Jeremy. This lack of responsibility not only further damages their relationship, but also sets a terrible example for her children. Colton, Kinsley's obsession with appearance as opposed to genuine communication is troubling. Her concern that Jeremiah laughs at one parent's jokes and not the other shows how superficial her approach to parenting is. She is missing the bigger picture, the fact that her son is reaching for connection and understanding. Sarah, the arrogant parent who believes they know what is best for their son, is a prime example of toxic parenting. Their inability to see their son as an individual with unique needs and emotions is detrimental to his emotional well-being. The fact that they have pushed him to isolate himself because of their own judgment and misunderstanding is deeply disturbing. Your sister had no right to judge you or your husband. My next story. Not long ago, I had a wedding. My brother and a couple of my friends decided to organize a party for me for my wedding because I'm not so free now and I won't be able to talk to any girl. I was a little bit amused by the way my brother Cameron described it, but I agreed to come because they were trying really hard for me. The celebration was planned for the evening at 7 o'clock so that everyone could come. I was a little late at work that day because of some extra work. When I went to wash up after work, I lost track of time a little bit and stayed at work half an hour longer than I had planned. It was already 6 o'clock in the evening and 20 minutes. I immediately ran to my car, but it turned out that I had a flat tire. I had to call a tow truck to take my car for repairs. The whole thing took 40 minutes. It was already 7 in the evening, but I was completely focused on the problem with my car. I've never had an incident like this in my life, so it held me back a bit. It took 30 minutes to get the new wheel installed. On the way to the house where the party was, I was also delayed a bit. In the end, I arrived at the party organized by my friends. When I went inside, I felt as if no one was waiting for me. My brother said, "I called you 3 times and wrote 6 times on Instagram, but you didn't answer." I started explaining what happened to me, but none of my friends agreed to believe in all the events. The holiday didn't go well for everyone. I apologized to everyone several times for wasting so much of their time. My girlfriend said that my friends were not entirely right in this situation and should forgive me, but my brother and my friends think I'm a jerk for making excuses and wasting their time. I don't think I deserve to be treated so badly. Of course I'm guilty, but my friends shouldn't be so upset with me. My brother says that I'm not to blame for being late, but because when I was late, I didn't pick up the phone and tell him I was late. In Cameron's opinion, I was disrespectful to them. Gabriella, what you did was far from ideal. In fact, you have 2 hands to call one of your friends and tell them that you won't be at the party soon. Perhaps some of them had important things to do, but because of you, they postponed them. You did the right thing by apologizing, but you can't get back an hour of their life. You need to be more organized, or you will lose all your friends. Carson, I'm sorry to read that you were unable to communicate your situation to your brother and friends in a timely manner. While unforeseen events can indeed disrupt plans, it is your responsibility to keep others informed. When such situations arise, the fact that you did not respond to calls or messages shows that you did not prioritize or consider their efforts. It's not just about the car incident. It's also about respecting the time and energy they put into organizing the party. Alice, your friends and brother have genuinely made an effort to organize a special celebration for you, so your unreliable behavior is even more disappointing. Your constant excuses and inability to communicate effectively show a lack of responsibility. The car incident may have been out of your control, but your inability to mitigate its impact on your attendance and their efforts reflects poorly on your commitment to their efforts and your own responsibility. Robert, the fact that you arrived late and apologized too late shows your disdain for the efforts of those who organized the party. Your friends and brother have worked hard to create a memorable event for you, and your actions show a lack of appreciation for their intentions. Instead of focusing solely on your side of the story, it's important to recognize their efforts and the frustration they've experienced because of your delay and lack of communication. Madeline, your story highlights questionable priorities and a lack of reflection on your part. While you had valid reasons for the delay, your inability to manage the situation and communicate effectively shows a lack of planning and foresight. In addition, your girlfriend's attitude suggests that you are more concerned with justifying your actions than taking responsibility for the impact of your behavior on others. Although if I were your friends, I would never want to do anything for you again because I would suspect that you would get into trouble again. A story that really surprised me. I have been working full-time for 3 years as a physics teacher at a university, and I have several important projects that I will be presenting in 4 days. Now I live in a small house that I rent from a woman in her 60s. I rarely have contact with Haley, except when she comes to collect the rent. There is also another guy living across the hall from me, who rents a house from the same woman. With a few days to go before my project presentation, I stayed up late at night to calculate the results in the spreadsheets. It was very tiring work, so I fell asleep right at my desk. This month, I failed to notice that it was time to pay Haley. She came at 7 in the morning to take the money from me. Haley knows that I usually wake up early, but this time, I was sleeping sweetly at my desk, hugging my laptop. Haley even called me, but I didn't hear anything. I woke up at 9 in the morning and called Haley. She was angry and said she would come to me in the evening to get her money. I told her that I would only come at night because I was planning to go to my brother's house. Haley said I would come back in 2 days to get the money. I left my house at 6 in the morning because I had forgotten important documents with calculations, and my presentation was starting at 7 o'clock and 30 minutes. It was 7 o'clock in the morning. I received a call from Haley. She asked why I wasn't opening the door, as she had been trying to get in for 7 minutes. And then I realized what else I had forgotten to do in my morning routine. I apologized to Haley and said that I would definitely give her the money tomorrow, but she wasn't satisfied with that and said I was an asshole for not paying what I owed on time. Haley also added, "Listen to me. If you don't pay me the rent on time one more time, you will end up on the street with your stupid experiments." I apologized to Haley several times and told her that I would definitely pay her back. My neighbor later told me that when Haley came to see me, she was mad as a dog. "Is it your job by any chance?" I told him that I hadn't paid her money on time several times before, so now she was angry. My neighbor said, "You better not annoy Haley, because she can really kick you out for that." Now, I feel a little scared. I would not like to lose this house because I pay for it very cheaply. Haley is still angry with me, even though I paid her my debt. I may have to change houses soon, because Haley makes me a jerk every chance she gets. Ian, you write that you are such a smart and cool physics teacher. But here's what I can tell you about this. It is quite obvious that the author's time management and responsibility are questionable. A full-time physics teacher with important projects on the horizon fails to pay the rent on time, and then forgets important documents for a presentation that is due soon. Man, this raises concerns about his organizational skills. Juggling work and personal responsibilities is crucial, especially when you have financial obligations like rent. Even though Haley was a bit aggressive, she has a point. Gianna, your interaction with Haley highlights a lack of respect for the terms of the lease, being repeatedly late with your rent and then falling asleep when Haley came to collect shows your negligence. In addition, your cavalier response to the situation when they offered to pay you the next day and then you said you wouldn't pay until 2 days later under a different pretext shows disregard for Haley's concerns and expectations. Your actions put you at great risk of ending up on the street. So think about it. Austin, the author's relationship with his neighbor, provides an interesting insight into their history of late rent payments. That guy told you that you were at risk of losing your apartment, and only after that did you decide to pay Haley's rent. You need to grow up and stick to the terms. Otherwise, none of your excuses will matter. Valentina, your actions in this story are problematic on several levels, from neglecting to pay rent to not prioritizing important work documents. Your behavior shows a lack of responsibility. Although you eventually paid your debt, the damage to your relationship with Haley has already been done. It's a reminder that being a responsible adult means not only completing tasks, but also respecting agreements and managing time effectively. If you continue down this path, you may find yourself facing bigger problems than just finding a new home. You may experience professional and personal difficulties because of your inability to cope with responsibilities.